We are Supremely Black, and we are Flake, Rose, and Spears. This week we have a special guest. We have Larry Spears Jr. I'm going to start off the week by asking our host how his week was, and then we're going to go on and, share how our week was before we get into this topic and this conversation. So introduce yourself, Larry, and let the people know who you are, and then let us know how your week was.
All right, so my name is Larry Spears Jr. I am actually the older cousin to Mr. Christopher Spears here, and so I serve as the mayor of Orange, Texas, and in my other job, I also work for Dow Chemical as an environmental technician, and so far my week has been perplexed, but it's been great, and it's always like that. There's always something going on 24/7. But we thank God for the opportunity to help other people. And I look forward to the weekend because I'm ready to go fishing and see what I can pull out the water. So.
What's up? This your big kinfolk, J.Flake. My week has been good. It's been a little stressful at work. However, I'm just thankful to be able to still say I have a job. So my week's been good. I had a great weekend. Headlining 2 shows at the Comedy Bar this past weekend. So appreciation to that crowd that came out, man. We had a super fun time. And if my Louisiana girls are listening, we call it the boot. I appreciate y'all for checking in. If y'all checked in this week, man, it was some fun ladies that came up from Louisiana to visit, man. And we just had an awesome time Friday night celebrating their birthday. So.
What's going on? This is D.Rose. It's been a pretty cool week, not a lot, so I would take that as a blessing. I get back to actual work coming up Monday. I've been out for a little minute, but getting back to that. But outside of that, everything has been cool and chilled, so no complaints here. What about you, Spirit?
My week been blessed. Ain't nothing too much been going on. Ain't nothing crazy didn't happen like the other week, so my week's been just chill. Been working out consistently on a regular basis or whatnot. Starting to see some improvements. Went vegan, so I've been vegan for 2 weeks straight. It's not as bad as I thought it was. It ain't bad at all. They got some surprisingly good plant-based meals for you. The plant-based chicken and beef and all of that other stuff ain't bad. The cheese not bad. So. I've been doing pretty good with it, and all you got to do, as long as you know how to season, you good. So if you don't know how to season, I can see why you say vegan is nasty and plant-based is nasty. But if you know how to season something, you straight, you good. So
Spears, I ain't finna let you lie to these people. Say that vegan cheese good, dog. That vegan cheese horrible. I ain't finna let you lie to these people, dog.
No, you probably don't. You probably don't get the right one in. You probably don't get the right one.
Maybe I don't. Because the one I tasted, man, boy, that joint was horrible.
It ain't gonna melt though, but it's good.
Man, it was like trying to melt government cheese.
They got a couple that do melt though. They got 3 brands that do melt. So okay. I've been doing my research. Been doing my research. All right. But this week we got a special week. Within lieu that everything's been going on with the world and all the things that's been transpiring. As my cousin stated, he is the mayor of his city in Orange, Texas. And so we brought a politician on to ask him the questions. And just because we related don't mean that I'm going to go easy on him, that we're going to sugarcoat shit that ain't nothing won't be how it's been always with Supremely Black. So first and foremost, we just want you to, I guess, let us know your day-to-day operations as a mayor and what all that entails for the people. Because again, people might know job titles, but they don't know actually the description that goes on with those titles and all that those titles consume in the political realm. So just let people know on a day-to-day basis, like what's your day-to-day basis. Again, like you shared with us before we jumped on, if you want to let people know, the income of what politicians make or whatnot, you can let them know that. So they know that your heart and where you come from is more about the people. It has to be with what you shared earlier.
Right.
So just let people know what you do on a regular.
So typically every day starts out with, I don't always report to City Hall because I do work a regular 9-to-5 job. And as we were talking about it earlier, the job that I work for Dow Chemical as an environmental technician. And my role as mayor, the pay is $184 a month. So we all know that that's not taken care of very much, but we are thankful for it because it does help me get around when I go out and about visiting businesses, visiting schools, speaking at different places, checking on people. So it definitely does not pay the bills. But if you're in a position like this, if you're thinking about getting in a position or running for an elected position, you need to make sure your heart's in the right place and that you're doing it because you want to help others. For me, it's all about a ministry, giving back to my community. I want to uplift the name of God in our community and just let people see that like things are possible when we work together. And so that's been mainly what I work on. But I start my day out and I speak with our city manager. So in our city, we actually have a city manager that is responsible for the day-to-day dealings and activities concerning all of the employees. At the end of the day, I am the one that's responsible. And so what myself and council do is we set policies, ordinances, and procedures that we want to see handled throughout the departments. And so his job is to ensure that our ordinances that we have set are carried out on a daily basis. So he and I talk daily. I speak with our assistant city manager daily. And I also go up there and visit several days a week and sit down. We have meetings. We update each other. I talk about things that I would like to see happen, change, or move forward, stop if it's not working. And then when we have meetings like today, we talk about what's going on. We talk about the new businesses that we're bringing in. We look at all the different aspects of the day-to-day dealings of a city. And a lot of people don't realize that a city is the same as big business, right? So you have a budget, you have employees, you have different departments, you have healthcare, you have vision, dental, medical. You have to supply all of these things for these employees, as well as take care of the things that keep a city running, its infrastructure, its streets, drainage, lighting, taxes. And so all of this is a daily task that takes place. And my day usually starts about 3:45 and ends about, it's like 3:45 a.m. and ends about 9:30 to 10 p.m. So there's not much sleep involved, but it's a 24/7 job, man, pretty much.
So basically, as the mayor, you get paid enough to pay the light bill.
Man, yes. If you have your light bill set on that pre-planned deal where it's like the same every month, if you catch me in the month of July, it ain't gonna cover it. It's not gonna happen.
So one of the reasons why we had you come over here, and one of the reasons why I definitely want you to come on here is that we have a lot of people of color that is wanting to get into politics, that is being more involved in politics and paying a lot of attention to politics. I can say one thing that happened with this whole 45 situation is that the young people have gotten more involved with politics and seeing what's going on. So I'm sure there's someone out there that is listening that probably has thought about being a mayor, probably thought about jumping to politics and running for Senate and things of that nature. So it's good to have you on here to provide that information that mainly what I get out of this is basically for right now is if your heart is not in it, this is something you don't need to be doing. So there is a lot of people out there that we can kind of figure out once they get in office that their heart is not really in it. They looking to get some type of financial gain and know what stock to jump into, get inside trader, or they have their own business on the side and know something that's coming to the city and I can grab that contract so I can get money put in my pocket. So my main question is, you may or may not can answer this, that we know when it's dream selling season, how do we pick out, or look at something that maybe a person that's running for office, how do we figure if somebody's the real deal before we go in there and place our vote? Because all of them show up at your church and say, hey, I'm here and I'm going to do this. But with you being in office, is there any trigger we can see to be like, you know what, he sound good, but something might be a little off with this person that we might need to dig a little bit more deep before this person gets
Mm-hmm. So the way that I've always worked, and what I have had this question before, and thank you for asking it. And once again, thank y'all for having me on here today, is, man, their actions have to match their words, right? So even though a candidate or someone who is potentially considering running for a position, you may have never met them before, but you can find out things about them through their social media. You can see, like, and I know it's sad to say, well, you should only be able to find out through social media, but like, if someone shows up tomorrow and says, I want to run for your city council, and then you're like, never seen them before, never heard of them before, you look on their Facebook or their Instagram and they just started posting pictures 2 days ago of hugging some kids in a random parking lot, that's not going to cut it. We have got to demand better from the people who are wanting to supposedly lead us. So to me, if you haven't seen them putting in the work for a while, it's really hard for me to just look at someone and say, hey, they're the real deal because of some words that they said. People have been writing books and putting words together since the beginning of time. And people have become really good at saying what they think that you want to hear. But my biggest thing is, if someone is in your community, if someone is saying they want to be a part of you, you should already have seen them and know who they are in order for you to just fully jump behind them and support them. Now, there are instances where you say, well, this guy, I haven't met him yet. I live in a big city. Well, then you know what? Find time to go to, if they're having a debate, if they are having a meet and greet, and ask questions. And don't just ask 1 or 2 questions, ask 4 or 5 questions, because if they are wanting your support, if they are wanting your vote, then they should not be afraid to give you the time to ensure you that they are here for the right reasons. And so I get people that ask me questions all the time that, you know, sometimes they're like, well, I'm not wanting to throw you under the bus, but they're like, but if I'm doing what's right, and if I care about my community, there's no question that should ever be offensive to me. And if I'm doing what's right, I should never have to cover up any wrongdoings. So listen to them, pay attention to what they're doing. And like I said, there are the instances where you're like, well, my city's just too big, and I understand that. So just continue to follow them. Before you just jump on the ship, follow them for a while and listen to what they have to say. And if they are consistent in their rhetoric, if they're consistent in their actions, then those are the kind of people that I support and endorse.
Rose, do you have a question?
Yeah, so to your point, so like, I know you said there's times where people may have a few questions for you, but can you give us like an example of where maybe you had a demand coming from somewhere? How do you all go about that process of making sure like this is important in this particular community? Like, what does that process really look like? Because I know a lot of times it's like, hey, Larry had this to do for us, but he didn't follow through as a mayor. So what does that process look like? How does the city decipher of what's really important in every particular area?
Right, that's a very good question. So on our council, we have 6 council members that serve. So 4 council members represent a certain part of the community. The other 2 council members and myself are what's considered an at-large position, right? So they don't just cover a certain section, they support the 4. They have the whole community. And so when someone comes in from, like, let's say District 1, right? And they're like, man, I've got some streets over here that need to be addressed. So we take that into consideration. Normally, the person that is over that area seeks the support of the at-large members and even the other council members, because, you know, when you live in a small town, we all know each other very well. But so the process would be to bring that to another council member and then bring that before the board. And what we do is when we bring that before the board, we have a budget for certain line items, streets and drainage, water department, things of that nature. And so if we do not have the funds allocated at that time for a project that someone just may say, hey, this is something that I think needs to be done, there's a lot of research that has to go into it. We have to go out there and inspect it. We look at it, we document it, and then we have to do our research on finding out how much it would cost to fix that road, to fully repair it properly. And so that's all written down, that's all put into a budget so we can see if we have money for it. If we don't, usually before the end of the year, when the new fiscal year starts, because like our fiscal year here in Texas starts on October 1st. So we will try to allocate funds before the budget begins, saying that, hey, we need to put $1 million into next year's budget to fix all of the roads that have been brought to us throughout the year from the community that we feel are appropriate and need repair. So it takes time, and so that's why I tell council members or anyone that's getting into this, you have to have a relationship with the people, because you have to be able to talk to them, explain to them, and tell them how it works, and not just say, oh, I'm going to get that done for you, right? Because it's not always like that. If you don't have the funds allocated from the previous budget, it's not like there's just this, and I mean, some cities have it, but it's not like there's like just $5 million that's on standby for whatever you think you may need tomorrow. Generally, a budget is prepared and set to fit the amount that you bring in from property and sales tax. And there's not really a whole lot of wiggle room for that. So it's a detailed process, and just informing the citizens of how it works and then seeing it through. Like, you may not be able to do it for like another year, but if you keep their number and their contact and send them an email periodically and say, hey, we haven't forgot about you. This is set for next year's budget. And when it comes back up, we'll invite you to the meeting so you can hear the process. And that way you can see how it all works.
Okay, another question for you. So when you think, I know you've mentioned budget a lot. So how do you all go about, how's that budget placed out? Like, how is it allocated in different areas? Is it based off of the business that flows through, or how does that work?
Right, so in your budget, it's kind of funny. You ever played any of these video games where like you have to build an empire, or you have to like, where you play Monopoly and you have all, so the game of Monopoly pretty much shows you how a system works. And so you have like general funds, you have all these different funds that make up your budget. For us, we operate on about $42 million a year. Now that comes from property taxes, which is what people pay homeowners. Not just property taxes. We have what's called industrial district contracts. So because we live in an area that's near the coastline, we have lots of chemical plants. Those chemical plants pay us a portion of money for operating within our city limits. And so that helps us out a lot on not having to pass the burden onto the citizens. And then of course you have retail and sales taxes, which is why if you ever notice, you'll see a lot of local elected officials or politicians that say shop local. Have you ever heard much about, they say, oh, we want you to shop local. That way the money that you spend stays within your community. When I've read and done some research like on Black Wall Street, when Black Wall Street was the years that it was functioning before it was, blown apart and devastated, I believe that they said that the everyday dollar was handed over like 30 something times before it left that community. That's how they thrived, was because if they made their money, it went to their barber, it went to their seamstress, it went to their furniture store before it went out of the community. And so that same type of mentality is what people are using here by saying shop local, because that money is what allows you to allocate funds to each department depending on what they need. Some departments need more than others, like streets and drainage needs a lot more than the finance department, right? Because the finance department is just paying our employees to, do their work, their paperwork on a daily basis. Streets and drainage is out there fixing busted pipes, repairing potholes and things of that nature. So it just depends on what different area the money is going to. Law enforcement, fire department, things of that nature. So we operate on 42 million, but it's sectioned off appropriately to address those departments.
Okay. Did you have another question or anything?
No, I was just saying thank you, brother. Appreciate that.
Okay, so
No problem.
For me, Doobie, my question for you before I get into a deeper question and progress this conversation is, when elected officials are elected, and then it becomes, city council meetings, it becomes citizens have grievances that happen in the city or whatnot, and they're trying to get in touch with their elected officials. And I know it might be different for you because you are in a smaller city than, a Dallas or a Houston or whatnot. But how would you tell the constituents and the citizens and the people to get in contact with their elected officials? Because a lot of times you get a voicemail, then you get a automated response that's the same automated response with every grievance that you have. And so that's how they get back to you, or you get an automated email back, and they're really not doing their due diligence to, to attend to the citizens that, voted for them or put them in office or help them get to where they're trying to go. So how would you tell the citizens to go about getting in contact with those elected officials? Because a lot of times once they're in office, it's really hard to get a hold of them. And then another thing, as far as in the bigger city, and I know it might be different in Orange, the city council meetings are always on the back page of, their website or whatever, or it's in small fine print. And so you can never really find out when the city council meetings are, so therefore that you can go up there and you can speak your grievances. So how would you tell the people to go about that?
So thank you for asking me that question. So that has been one of the things since the day I started in 2014, is that, so I know that most of the times some meetings may be in the morning and people have a 9-to-5 job and they can't make it. But for those who can, you have got to show up. If you have a grievance, if you have a neighborhood that has a grievance, get together with your community, get together with your neighborhood and say, we can't make it, but how many of us can go, right? And so let me tell you something that if someone is ignoring you, if someone is not paying attention to you or just giving you automated responses, nothing speaks louder to either in that situation or even someone that does care and does try to get back with you. It's all about showing up in numbers. And so even if you can't find the information on the webpage, if 20 to 30 people show up at that next meeting, and when you each get your 3 to 5 minutes to speak, which they normally have a general comments or citizen comment section, if all of 50 of you get up and speak for 5 minutes on what you're not happy with, and it's the same thing, and then you say, we don't like how it's hard to find the meeting times or the agenda minutes or the recorded video, and you hammer and you hammer and you hammer, I promise you will get their attention and they will address the issue. And so I know that it's hard, but generally they should have a meeting. Like we have 2 meetings a month, one in the morning and one in the evening. So one at 9:30 in the morning. The second meeting of the month is at 5:30 p.m. in the evening, to make sure that we give people a chance to come to either meeting. But when you show up and when you stand before them and you voice your grievance and you voice your opinions on what's going on, they have no choice but to hear you. Now, whether or not they act on it, then that's for you to remember and to take note. So the next time that they go to run, they're like, we don't even need you up there because you're not representing us properly anyway. We just built a brand new park here. And in that park, myself and many people in the community wanted a splash pad put in the park. When it came time to vote on the park and the splash pad and what we really wanted, 30 people from an organization that did not want the splash pad were in the audience. And so when all 30 people got up and said, we do not want a splash pad, now, even though I'm representing people who couldn't be there, it's kind of hard for me to be like, no, I'm going to do this the way I want to do it. We're getting a splash pad. Because an elected official is supposed to be the voice of the community. And one of the greatest things about it is that if you show up in numbers, the majority gets what they want. And so we voted to not put a splash pad, because there was that many people who were like, hey, I don't know where everybody else is, but we're here and we don't want a splash pad. So for that many people to show up and say we didn't want it in a community of our size, it was like, okay, well, maybe in the next park we'll do something like that. So showing up really makes a difference. Yes.
Okay. That's good. That's good news. That's good knowledge. So my next question for you is, with being the mayor, you have a lot of control, or I don't even want to say control, but you are the representation of the people. And so how much say do you have over police departments or police chiefs, or how much interaction do you have with that, with the climate of the world and the climate of America, in dealing with police brutality, social injustice, and all of that stuff? So when things do happen in other cities and cities like that, how much impact or influence does the mayor have on said so things, dealing with such things as I mentioned?
Right. So let's take, for instance, the George Floyd incident. As soon as it happened, my city manager and I talked about it. The next morning, I was at the police station and I went to every shift change to talk to the officers about what they saw, how they felt, how I felt, and that a situation like that has no place in our community or in anywhere, right? Anywhere in the world. But if you're going to be in a position like this, and I know that God put me here for a reason, I don't take advantage of my position, but I treat those people in those departments as my brothers and sisters, whether it be the guy that's on streets and drainage, the guy that's the fire department. So I go and visit with them periodically in the good times. So that way, when things like that do arise, they're not like, well, he's only showing up because he wants to make sure like we're not doing this or we're not doing that, or to scold us and things of that nature. So we talked it out, and words were very strong in that meeting. And one of the things that I did hear from many of the officers were they were infuriated because they watched the video. And in our city, we have a policy not to put a knee on your neck. Like that is not that is not something that should be done. And so one thing that many of our officers told me, there's always a group of people, and some people just don't talk. But the ones who did said, there's nothing that a good cop hates worse than a bad cop. And they were like, to see that, it hurt them, because it's like, now I've got to go out into my job with people looking at me like, are you going to do this to me? And so that was one of the things that, as soon as it happened, I just wanted to get out there and talk about it before it was like swept under the rug, or someone thought that, well, he's not going to address that, he's too scared to talk about it. But we had some great open dialogue. And as far as walking into a department and telling people what to do, that is not how the mayor works in our role of government. So our job is to set the policies and procedures, and then the city manager carries those out with the department head, so the police chief, fire chief. Now, I have the power to go in there and to talk to the police chief, fire chief, city manager, finance department, and things of that nature. But as far as like just walking into their office and being like, you're fixing to go do this right now because I said so, that's not how most government in Texas works, because most government works on what's called a manager council rule, which means that you work through a city manager.
Gotcha. Appreciate that. Good question, Spears. Appreciate you asking that, Mayor Larry. One question that I have for you too, because I noticed during this conversation, it might have been before we went live and started recording, that I noticed that you are a spiritual and godly man. A lot of people,
well, thank you.
I can just see it in you and in the conversations we have. So a lot of people say that politics and religion shouldn't mix. So with that being said, with your and how you feel about your religion and God, do you kind of set that aside for going into politics or being a mayor of a city and things like that? If that makes sense.
No, sir. Yes, sir. No, that's a good question. So it's so the moment that I was sworn in and got a chance to take my seat, I let it be known to the public at that time that this city would be led by the Lord, and we would pray and we would do everything that was pleasing and right by Him. And so some people were like, well, man, what about people who are Hindu, or what about people who are Buddhist? Whatever religion that they feel that they would like to worship, I fully support that. But as long as I am the mayor, I am going to lead this community in the way that I feel that God has given me direction to do so. And I'm unashamedly strong in that. And so here's my answer to that question, because I get it a lot. But besides getting asked how much money I make by the kids, a lot of people say, well, man, you talk about Christ all the time. Like, and you're not, politics normally don't do that. Well, for me, it's not about politics. I am the mayor of the city of Orange, and most people would consider that a politician. For me, I consider it, we are here to love people where they are for who they are. So I don't care what your sexual orientation is. I don't care what religion we are here to love you for where you are in life, for who you are. And that's been our motto. And so far, it's worked very well for us. And I truly think that that's where this country and many local governments have lost their way, is by not putting their trust in God anymore. And I know somebody may say, well, why do you think your religion, I'm not saying it's better than anybody's. I just know that for me, that's where my strength comes from. So it's turned a lot around here. This is the South. Okay, there's still Confederate flags on trucks and stickers and things, and there's still people who look at me and say, at the time I was 37 years old, Black mayor in a town where it's let's say 18,600 people, 12 to 13,000 are Caucasian, 6,000 are African American. So there's definitely, it's not balanced, but they gave me a chance. And the people who probably thought, well, I don't know, the Lord gave me this opportunity. The people have given me a chance to serve them. And so we're going to do it, in my opinion, the way that is pleasing to the Lord. And if they don't like it, I always tell them, if I don't win the next election, that's fine. I'll just go back to being a husband and a father. But I'm here to do what God says to do. And that's all that I can focus on right now.
Okay. Do you have any aspirations of moving up, maybe being governor of the state of Texas, or moving up to something that's a little bit higher, to being a mayor? And do you think your faith will hinder that when you get higher up politicians and things of that nature?
Man, so I've always, not always, but you think about that from time to time, like, man, could it happen? Like, would it be possible? And then you always hear the saying that people say, if God has it for you, then it's for you, right? So I think that if that is for me, He's going to open the door for me, and if He opens that door, then my religious beliefs shouldn't hurt that. The sad thing about that, though, is a lot of these people say, oh man, I'm a Christian, right? And you look at like all the people who call themselves Christians, but then it's like, man, but are you really living it? Like, are you really loving people like you're supposed to? Because there's a lot of people in office right now who say, I'm an evangelical and I'm a Christian. And it's like, well, your actions aren't following that. So I think that really a lot of people in America today are looking for good, godly Christian leadership. But I think they're also looking for someone that's going to be their actions match their words. And so I'd like to see it happen. Maybe I can make $186 a month one day if I was the governor. but for now, I'm gonna just enjoy my Mac rib sandwich and continue to be the mayor here in the city of Orange.
Now I heard the governor pay a little different. Now I heard the governor give you a house and everything now.
Yeah, you get You get a little bit more, man. And you know, it's funny. Like I said, the kids always ask me about that, and it's like it never really has been an issue because I really take this more as doing God's will, and it's like a ministry. And like when I do interviews, like you said, you heard me speak about it. When I do interviews, when I go to schools and speak, when new businesses come and we do grand openings, I always ensure the people that this is because of God, that this is His doing, and that this is not of mine. Because I know, like as Chris can tell you, Chris's father is one of my best friends, my greatest mentors. In the passing of my father, I lost my father at the end of 2019, and his dad has filled that void. And so he and I talk a lot. It's like the moment that you ever put yourself before the Lord, He will remove everything. He will take it from you because you're not greater than Him. So I always make sure that I put Him first.
Outstanding.
So, Mayor Spears, my next question for you would be, what would you say is the best way for us to go about to try to change legislation? Since you're holding office and everything, you might have an inside track or some insider knowledge to allowing the people to know the best way to get legislation changed, judicial stuff changed, and everything like that, because I understand local voting is very important, but sometimes local vote still does not fix the issues because the law is the law and it's what it is. And so how would you say we need to go about in trying to get legislation changed so then therefore some of these things that they lock Black and brown people up for can get either alleviated all the way or lesser charges or whatever the case, so to speak, kind of like what they're doing with, marijuana or whatnot. So how would you say we go about that?
Okay, great. 3 things. So the first thing is on a local level, like local politics in your community, if you see legislation and things that you do not like, the same thing goes as what we talked about earlier when you show up, right? So you write it out. You write it out what you wanted to say. You can start a petition, get all these signatures, and when you show up in force and you say, these are some ordinances that you have, and you reference those ordinances, and this is the amendment that we would like to see you change on this ordinance. And you show up in numbers, and you know what? They don't listen the first meeting. You go back and you go back and you go back and you force them to listen to you. That's whenever you ask me how much power do I have, my power is not really it's not as much as you would think, but I have the power to change ordinances, procedures, resolutions, and things of that nature. So on a local level, your city council members and your mayor, they can change the rules or the legislation that you see on that level. Now, to go up to the next level, like the representatives, like the House of Representatives, the senators, and things like that. That's when you have to get on the internet, Google it. I've never done one myself, but you can look up how to write a bill. You remember that cartoon that used to be Schoolhouse Rock? And it was like, I'm just a bill. Yes, I'm only a bill. Like that is a real deal. Like you can write a bill that you push to your state representative, and his job, if you get enough support and signatures behind it, is to present that bill to the Senate on the floor of the House. If you guys live in Texas, for you, Mr. Flake, that lives in Tennessee, I would encourage you to encourage your listeners to visit the House of Representatives and to visit the Texas Senate in Austin. If you've never been before, it is an eye-opening, mind-blowing experience on how all of this works. Basically, it's a bunch of guys in suits that look just like you and me, Chris, that walk up there with paperwork in their hand, and they start reading off bills and legislation that has been pushed from the small communities to be changed in the Texas Senate. I know it's a lot more to it than that, but to see it actually happen, you are allowed to come in and sit in the audience and watch and listen to how it works. And it's wonderful to see that it's really just that simple of people having to get off their butts to make change happen. Now, judges with unfair sentences. When a judge is positioned in a seat, it is really hard to influence how they act because a judge has a lot of power. But where you have the power is to vote them out in the next election. If you see a judge that is handing out these lengthy sentences, you can go sit in the court and listen in and maybe help them appeal by being a part of a petition of some sort. But man, from what I have seen, these judges have a lot more power than I realized when I wasn't involved in this. And so really the biggest influence you have is to hold them accountable. And before they get into those seats, to ask them these very questions. We have a young man here in Orange that was unfairly sentenced. And it's just like, when it happened, everybody was like, man, a guy in a neighboring city just got like probation. And this guy got like 30 years in prison. And it's just like, it crushed the community. So on that level, you can vote them out and then, continue to support the ones that support you.
That's deep. That's
but it's
good.
all in the power. It's all in the power of the people. Man, one day if we get a chance, I know you're in Houston, if we decide to go catch up with Shuby in Austin and they're in session, we'll bring our dress suits and we'll go in there and let you meet some of the senators and stuff that I know. It's really awesome to see.
Oh, I'm with it.
Yeah, that's good information. I didn't know you can pull up and sit in as an audience member and listen to this go on.
It's yours. It's yours.
That's good information. I didn't know that at all.
Yeah. So all of those are public buildings, right? Public buildings are owned by the people. So unless you got you can't walk, they screen you and all of that stuff, but it's open to the public. If they're in session, hey man, it's so cool to walk by and when you're in the Texas Senate or the Texas Capitol, you're walking in the hallway and there's their office door. And guess what? Hey man, I want to talk to you. We have literally listened to a bill be brought forth to the Senate that was going to decimate all of the budgets for small towns in Texas. When he finished, we followed him to his office and knocked on the door because we wanted an explanation. There was probably 7 or 8 of us. There was 4 council members, 2 mayors, and 2 school superintendents. And he sat down and explained everything to us right then and there because he could see we meant business. And that was him leading off the floor. Now, you can't go on the floor, but you can sit in the auditorium and look down and watch everything.
Now, my next question for you, Doobie, is does the city council members and, well, I'm guessing it does because you said they're represented by district. So depending on how big the city is per capita, per citizen, determines how many city council members there is, or is there a set amount for every city and every county or whatnot?
Right. So in Texas, you have to follow the Texas Constitution, but you also have the liberty to set certain things according to your city. Like you're able to set your own charter. So wherever you live right now, if you live in the actual city of Houston, there's like Missouri City, there's Humble and things like that. Get online and look up the charter, and the charter will tell you how that city operates. And then you can see how people are elected, how the positions are chosen, how the number of representatives have been chosen, charter, but it does have to fall under certain guidelines of the Texas Constitution.
Okay. Do y'all have any more questions for him?
No, we may have lost him.
No, we good. I accidentally I was looking at the chat of what Flake had said. But no, I did have one more question. So I know you were saying that in regards to the judges may give out unfair sentences. And now I know that that's where a lot of people is like, I don't really care about, politics. I don't really care about voting. But do you think there's like being able to vote them out, or how do you go about appealing that? Because a lot of people's lives are impacted. They may get a felony, so they can't vote, or, they're detached from their families. They're going to prison for a long time. So how does that immediate halt to say like, hey, judge, I feel like you're giving him an unfair sentence, and how we go about stopping that to where it's, maybe a retrial or something of that nature, or a reappointed judge that isn't giving out unfair sentences. So where it's not a big difference from someone from a neighboring county getting something completely different, or if we're being completely real, someone that's of a different race gets a way less,
right?
And then someone else that's, darker skin gets unfair treatment. How does that stop
right.
to where it's not impacting someone's life?
So the first thing that I would do is, if there is an appeal, like you go and you can sit down and figure out who is this person's lawyer? Like, how can we as a community support this and start a petition, maybe letters of recommendation, letters of support. I have been honored and blessed to been asked by a lot of people since I've been in this position, like, hey man, I'm fixing to get out, or hey man, I'm trying to, beat this. Could you please write a letter of recommendation for me? I did mess up, Mr. Larry, but I'm doing better now. And so the people who are in these positions like myself, even though I can't go, and I would never try to go into a judge's office and say, you need to do this or else. But it's like, hey, listen, I'm here to speak on behalf of this young man or this young lady. And I'd like for you to give them a chance, maybe to consider a lesser sentence. I have done that on several occasions. It doesn't always work, but sometimes we just have to try. And then if that person, I've even seen instances on several cases where a young man was sentenced for like 60 years, and then like several pastors showed up and like asked for begged for leniency, and they we would take him under our wing, we will mentor him, we will do therapy with him. And then the judge dropped it to 3 or 5 years. And he did some stuff that he should have gotten in trouble for. But the judge was like, for me to see this many people in the community care about you, I'm going to give you one more chance. And so I know that's not going to always happen because, each judge is different. But man, we don't have representation because we are not out there fighting to represent ourselves, right? So when people say, man, how do I get this judge removed, or how do we get more African Americans in those seats? Find somebody to run and get a lot of people to vote for them. Point blank, period. In my city, there are 18,600 people, okay? 11,000 and some change are actually registered to vote. In a normal election, 1,200 people vote. Wow. Think about that. 18,600 people, 11,000, let's say 11,200 are registered. But in a normal city election, you will get about 1,100 to 1,200 votes. So that is and I guarantee you, if you look at your city or wherever you live, besides this last election concerning Biden and Trump, I guarantee you it's about a 10 to 12% voting average that makes the decisions for the entire city.
All right, so this is my last question here, because I know we were kind of talking about it a little bit before we went live. So I know you said that basically, if we're addressing the elephant in the room, is that we do a lot of complaining about things that aren't being changed, but from your perspective, that we need to be even more active in regards to getting these things taken care of. But what does that look like? What is the perfect world in that for you? What do you see the difference is? Why do you think people aren't just as engaged as they should be to get things like this changed?
Because I think it's just like anything that you see in the world today. It's what's hot for the moment, right? So last year, Champion was the bomb. Everybody was wearing Champion again. Now, nobody's wearing it, right? Then it's okay, well, I got this Louis bag on my arm. Now your wife wants a Prada. So it's whatever's hot at the moment. So then we see some injustices take place on TV, and we get mad, we get upset, and we say, hey man, I'm fixing to go out and make a change. And then a song like WAP comes out, takes our attention away from what's going on. Everybody's talking about Megan Thee Stallion and Cardi B, and that same intensity that we had that just 2 weeks ago is now lost over and over and over again. And when you see people talk about how they use music and media to pull us away, not just blacks, I mean, for people, period, it's real, man. It's real. It's like something happens that pulls your attention away to where it's like, oh, well, we'll come. So one of the things that I can't stand are people who want to be, like they come and jump all in my grill and like, why haven't you done this? Why haven't you done this? Why haven't you done this? And it's like, but I've been doing this for 6 years, never seen you at a meeting, never heard from you before, never got an email, a text message, or a phone call. And then you come and accuse, but you don't know that I've been working on something for 3 or 4 years. But if y'all don't support me, not y'all, but I'm saying the people in the community, if you don't show up to these meetings when I'm asking you to show up, if you don't vote when I tell you you need to get out and vote, it's really hard for us, people in my position, elected officials across America, to make a change when the people are not supporting what you do. It's very hard. So I think that we can rock the vote. I think that we can make a difference. And I'm not judging anybody. I'm not talking bad about Cardi B or Megan Thee Stallion. They are both beautiful women, by the way. I'm just saying that them doing what they do, we just get caught up in it. It's like, hey, you seen that new video, or have you seen that new TikTok challenge? And then it's all forgotten. It's all forgotten.
That's my kinfolk, because I say that every time. I say people are fickle, and we move with the climate. We on to the next, and people really don't care about something. And that's why, people just put up stuff for hashtag purposes and for clickbait, and then the next day they done and over with it. Flake, did you have one more question for him? Because the last question that I have for him, I just want to leave him with that, because we are supremely black. I want to leave him with a supremely black question, just so we can set it off for the people. But if you got one more question for him.
I got one more. And then he brought up, I'm bringing this up because he brought up the election and things of that nature. Now, as being the mayor, and I know not for your own election, but we just had the presidential election just happened not too long ago, or we have election for governor. Is that something that you might oversee or have some type of look over to make sure that nothing is going foul? As you know, in this recent election, it's saying, votes are missing, votes was thrown out, votes are trash, votes was burned. As being the mayor, is there something that, that you kind of overlook? I know you don't maybe not overlook the whole thing, but have some type of hand in to make sure that, oversee to make sure everything is running properly and correctly within your community.
Yes. So in our local government, like for instance, we just had a election for a seat on city council, and the gentleman that did not win asked for a recount. In that recount, my job is to be the governing official, to sit there and watch the official recount. Now, it just so happens that in my real job, I was working a shutdown and I could not participate. So I had to pass that duty on to our city secretary. And then she sat there and did the vote recount. When people say that these votes are lost and there's voter fraud and all of this, if you notice, it usually happens in the bigger cities. And in this election, when the vote recount took place, it changed by 1 vote. And so they went through over 30-something thousand votes because it took place at the same time as the presidential election, and it changed by 1 vote. So we have been very blessed here to not have those situations occur. But yes, so like usually if it's not my election, I will venture up there, not only to vote, but just to check on there's usually several ladies that run our election. And I just go up there and I'm like, hey, how's everything going? And just check on them. But there is an official elections supervisor that is over that. And so they are there all day long. Now the supervisor may leave and go to different voting locations, but that entity has a whole system of hierarchy, like a supervisor, workers, things of that nature. And so really, I speak with her and check on them during every election to see how it's going. Because you have crazy stuff that happens every time, like people harassing voters, people bickering outside. There's been cops called like almost every time. Almost every time the police are going to get called, like at your major voting location. So I try to stay in touch with the people who are running it all. But then when it gets above local, man, that stuff gets crazy, you know, to see like 70 something million votes. And it's like, you know, you hear about this person's been dead 20 years and they somehow cast a ballot. I don't understand all of that. So that's crazy.
Okay, so the last question for you tonight, Larry, is what is it like in this climate in 2021 now to be a Black elected official? And is there any added pressure, racism, scrutiny, discrimination that you receive? Is there any added self-pressure that you put on yourself because you know you have to represent for your people? Just what is it like being a Black elected official in America in 2021?
Man, so I said to myself, Chris gonna give me a good one at the end. I knew it was coming. And thank you for that question, because people need to hear this. At times, it is a very lonely world, because it is very hard to see all of the things that are taking place across America and in the world today, and then have a fine line to where you can process it. I see it, but I cannot allow it to dictate how I function in my capacity. Now, with that being said, I am responsible for an entire city and a community of people, Black, white, yellow, red, brown, whatever. There's a melting pot down here in Southeast Texas. In that capacity, working to bridge the gap between the different races is what I feel that God brought me and put me in this position for, because my parents afforded us the opportunity to where, like, we grew up in a different neighborhood than a lot of people that I represent grew up in. I also went to a private school for many years before I got to high school. And then when I got to high school, I moved over to the public school here locally, and then got to learn more about myself and about people in this community. And so this position carries a heavy load, because you're responsible for almost 19,000 people every day. When the hurricane hit, it's my responsibility to get these people out of here and to keep them informed. When a disaster happens, like COVID or pandemic, I have to make the decisions that affect all of these people. So that burden in itself is already heavy. Then you add on to it being an African American, where some people are never going to like me just because I'm an African American, right? And like, you call me Doobie because that's my nickname. So for those who don't know, my dad's nickname was Scooby. My nickname is Doobie. So then they try to use that against me, like, oh, I bet he's a weed smoker. And it's like, it's just a nickname that I got from my daddy. And so for so many years, it seems like people are giving you this stamp of approval, like, oh, well, he's one of the good ones, so we can support him. And I hate that, because that to me is so like racist and prejudiced when you're like, he's one of the good ones. Like, what do you, I don't think they realize how ignorant that sounds. Like, so I'm one of the good ones. So I guess that means that all other Black men are not good people. And so my biggest thing is, I love my hair. I love visiting the schools so these kids can see that, you know, I may not have dreads, but I didn't change to the clean cut look anymore to make people feel like, well, he's trying to fit the bill. I have my stuff twisted a little bit, you know. I wear the suits. I come out clean because I want people to see that I'm going to always be on top of my game to represent the community. There has been racial things said about me many, many times. I have received text messages. I have had people say stuff to my face. And if it was not for the Lord by my side and giving me the strength to get through this, it's one of those things where it's like you ask yourself, why am I even doing it? But I do know why I'm doing it, because when these people who used to never open up to an African American or a Black man or to someone on this side of town because of fear, we are now knocking down those walls. And I'm saying, hey, look, this person is the same as you. You are the same as them, and we need to all work together. And the things that I have experienced have not been that severe. Like, I haven't had the N word used against me, but the one word that will set me off is if you call me boy. That literally takes me from 0 to 1,000,000 immediately, because I feel like that word is used by a lot of people in the South, and they know what they're doing when they say it. Like, hey, come here, boy. And it's like, man, look, don't, don't. I almost lost my job. I almost lost my job one day, and it was a learning experience, because my coworker, which happened to be a Caucasian guy, he said, man, when I heard him address you that way, I've heard people say it around my family. I've heard people say it around town. But when I heard him say it to you, I immediately became infuriated. And he was like, now I see what you mean. And now I know how you feel, to an extent, because he was like, it was so derogatory. He was like, I wanted to punch the dude in his face myself. So I thank God for giving me the opportunity to enlighten people. But this is definitely an opportunity for me to say, hey, we are human, we are talented, we are gifted, and if you listen to the Word of God, regardless of what color you are, Matthew 19:26 says that all things are possible. So I try not to talk about race a whole lot in my day-to-day work throughout the community, but I am honored and thankful that as a Black man, I get to be the leader of a community that is mixed, that is diverse. And I'll tell you something too, believe it or not, you may get comments on this, Chris, but I'm gonna be honest with you and the fellas. Some of my strongest supporters are elderly white people. And some of my biggest detractors are our own people of my age group. And I'm not afraid to say that, because it's the truth, right? And I've had the Uncle Tom, I've had the sellout. I have people who talk about me on Facebook, and I see the screenshots and the text messages, and so it's like, I'm a sellout because they support me and you don't, or I'm a sellout because these people see what I'm trying to do for the community, and just because you don't understand it, it doesn't mean I'm a sellout. And I'm sorry if I'm going too long, but I'm gonna finish with this.
No, you good.
Okay. In our city, there is a certain part of the community that is lower income, right? And so somebody would say, well, you're over here and all over here and I'm over there too, but they're like, you're all over here talking and speaking and doing things. The way that a budget works, the way that a city operates is as a whole. You do not have enough money coming from one side of town to take care of the entire community. So in order for me to get people where they need to be on this side of town, to uplift the lower income side of town, I've got to get the entire community to believe and want to support and want to finance bonds and new taxation rates, so that way we can uplift the side of the community that's lacking, and that way we all benefit. So while you think I'm over here tomming or selling out, I'm not tomming, I'm not selling out. I'm trying to get the people who have disowned this side of town to understand that it is profitable, that it can be a tremendous asset, but we've got to go over here and talk to each other. And you got to learn more about these people, and you got to understand that they're not thugs, that they're not thieves, and that if you get to know them, and that if you support them, and we put money into this side of town, that we all benefit in the long run, because businesses and people who are starting families want to live in a community that's changing, that's growing, that's moving forward together. And so it's not about selling out. It's about trying to get people to buy in. And when people buy in, that's when things change. And that's when the community is uplifted in the end.
That's deep. That's deep. That's dope. And I appreciate you, Kinfolk, for sharing your knowledge, your wisdom, and just giving us knowledge and wisdom on some things that we didn't even know or we didn't even think about. Because one thing that you told me that educated me today was, well, two things you did. One, that we could go to the state capitol and sit in and then be able to knock on doors and, you know, directly talk to the House of Representatives or our senators or whatnot. But then two, one thing that you also told me is that we can actually write bills ourselves if we figure out, you know, the proper protocol to write it and then present that before, you know, our elected officials that represent us. So then therefore it could go to the national level if need be or whatnot. So I appreciate that knowledge and that wisdom that you shared. And do y'all have anything to add to them?
Thank you for the knowledge. Thank you for joining. But on a very real note, thank you for your transparency, because I know it's hard. I know it's difficult, especially being a Black man that's, you know, being a leader, but also being a God Black man that's, you know, trying to lead in the right way. So thank you for that, because this platform isn't for any Uncle Tom. So to come on here, it's definitely real. So we wouldn't let that happen, but I do appreciate you for keeping it real and in regards to how both sides of the fence it really is. So appreciate you.
Thank you, man.
Yeah, appreciate you coming on. Spirit shared a couple of things that I didn't know that you was able to give out. Also, that last note that you gave, that it takes the buy-in from the entire community to help the low income. Because sometimes we get caught up with like, man, Mary ain't doing nothing, man. They see us over struggling. We got these messed up streets, roads. But on the background, the mayor could be fighting the whole time trying to get people to buy in to support this community. And it's our own self that's holding one community back from being one that's prosperous and being able to get the ability in the same coverage as the rest of the community. So that is good information to know. And for those out there listening, you know, and if you thinking about getting into politics, man, I think I'm gonna pull up at the state capitol myself and listen in. I'm gonna have to get my suit game up and pull up and be a guest and listen, because you made it sound like it's very cool to be a part of. So I want to see what that's all about.
Yeah, and it's cool because everybody's wearing suits. Like, these cats are sharp dressed, but it's awesome to understand. I mean, so you have to remember that they work for you. And I want to encourage all the listeners and each and every one of you, before the end of this year, or before the end of the next 3 months, forget a year. If you have not visited a local city council meeting or whatever they call it, county meeting, please do so. And then I guarantee you will be enlightened to hear of what all they're working on. I guarantee you they're working very hard for you. But if you can't find out what's going on in class if you're sitting out in the hallway, you know, you got to be in there listening and learning and finding out what's going on.
Yeah. All right. Dude, I need one assist from you. We do a thing on our podcast called the Black Business Minute. And I know Falika started her own press juice business. So I want to shout her out in her business. But I need your assistance from it because you might know a little bit more from. I don't know if she has a website yet or anything. I know the name of the press juice business is C619. But if you want to share with the people and let them know exactly what your sister is doing and how they can get in contact with her to order some juices, some press juices or whatnot, go ahead.
Man, thank you. So my sister just started this. It's like these smoothies and they're all natural. And, you know, just the other day, I thought I was catching the flu again. I went over to her house. She made me one right then and there. 30 minutes later, I was like doing all the yard work and stuff, like nothing ever happened. And it blew my mind that it was like lettuce and turnips and and cucumber, and it was like all of these different things, and turmeric, and all these things that she's putting together that she's been learning about, and it actually really works. And so she's on fire right now. She's getting a lot of business. It is C619. You can look her up on Facebook. She has a Facebook page for the letter C and then SIX19. And also that's for 1 Corinthians 6:19. That way you can go read the scripture. All of her stuff is religious based, and she wants it not only to feed your body, but also to feed your soul. And I'm so proud of her. You know, we lost my father in the end of 2019. In September of 2019, we lost my dad. In September of 2020, we lost my mom. And my sister was there to take care of my mom after my dad passed. And so to see her now stepping out and doing something for herself and still wanting to give back and to help other people is really just awesome. So C6, the letter C, SIX19. It's on Facebook. Her name is Felica, which is Felica Conway, Conway. Message her, tell her you heard about it through the Supremely Black podcast, and we appreciate the support greatly. Thank y'all.
Appreciate you, Kinfolk.
Thank
Now,
you,
Flake, who we got for our Supremely Black Person of the Week?
We're gonna have two. We're gonna have two this week. We're gonna have two black men. One that I just discovered today, and it's gonna be Mr. Mayor Larry Spears. He's gonna be one of our Supremely Black People of the Week. Definitely, you had my buy-in when you said I'm not a politician. I am a community leader, and that is what we need. I feel like if people go into politics, not being a politician, but being a community leader, a lot of stuff can be rectified and taken care of within our community, and we can also be a better community. As I always say, one neighborhood can change a city, one city can change the state, one state can change the country, and one country can change the world. And I believe that all starts with community leaders and not going in as a politician for the name, for the fame, and for whatever money you can gain while you're in office. Yeah. But look out for everybody else to get taken care of. Because as we see by having this discussion with you, it got to be in your heart to be a number one as a politic and a community leader.
Hey, Rose, I was about to say, ooh, the way he was rhyming.
hey, I was so put down some game, ain't it?
Yeah. Sounded like Sauce Walker.
All right, listen, okay.
And our second person is going to be, I don't even know his name, but we have seen his picture all over the place. And that is the black police officer that was in the Capitol that was by himself fighting against all those people trying to attack. And come to find out, the story was he kind of deterred them from going somewhere where they was heading. And they just kept following him, and it avoided them getting in contact with a lot of other people. So they need to give that man a raise. They need to give that man a promotion because he was on his own.
He needs a twisted tea. He needs a twisted tea can. That's what he needed.
Right. Because he was on his own with about 30 people, 30, 40 people. See, it might be more than that, but from what I seen, like about 30, 40 people coming at him by himself. So outstanding work to that man there. And making sure that those people didn't get to where they was trying to go, and possibly saving somebody else's life or saving them from getting to the people they want to get to. So this week, we appreciate you two fellas.
Thank you, man. I appreciate y'all.
It was an honor to have you, Kinfolk. An honor to have you.
No, man, thank you. It was an honor and a blessing when you messaged me and said, hey, when you called me and said, hey, would you be on it? I was like, man, I'll do whatever it takes. I'm always here for you. Mr. Flake, Mr. Chris, I appreciate y'all. Hey, so since I got the Supremely Black guy of the week, can I get my boy Chain? I need to see that in the mail. Send it to me, bro. Let me get that chain, guys. I'm just gonna tuck mine in.
Yeah, you can get it, man. It's just gonna charge you $180. So it's just a little month salary.
Oh, that's a whole month salary, baby.
Yeah. Hey, but it's the dude that's Eugene Goodman, the black man that was in the Capitol building.
Okay.
Yeah.
Shout out to Eugene Goodman.
Yeah.
All right. Thank y'all, man. God bless.
Hold on real quick, King Folk. Hold on. We're going to close out.
Oh.
Close this out, Flake.
All right. For all my queens out there, put your crown on, tilt that thing to the side. Let them know you are a queen. For all my kings out there, put your crown on, tilt that thing to the side. Let them know you are a king. And we are not 3/5 of anything. 100% kings and queens. This is Supremely Black. Thank y'all. And we out.
Peace.